Remember when a kid from Winnipeg united an entire country?
I can't call it sacrifice when I'm doing something I want to do. And to me, I wouldn't really want to do anything else.
Let's go back.
Tamagotchi, the Y2K.
Terry Fox. For every Canadian, that name is as recognizable as Tim Horton, Don Cherry, Rocket Richard, and as Canadian as poutine and watching the Maple Leafs lose in the NHL playoffs. However, if you're outside the red, white, and leaf, you may not know that name. Or maybe you do. I don't know your life. For me and every other young kid growing up in Canada, we were first introduced to Terry through the annual Terry Fox Run at school. Once a year, every September, we would get together as a school and run through our town in support of cancer research. In fact, that's why I'm making this video at this time of the year. Sure, at the time we may have been more excited about going outside and getting away from math class for an hour, but that didn't stop us from knowing the significance of the kid who became a national hero. Born on July 28, 1958 in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Terry Fox grew up loving sports. Later moving to British Columbia, he tried joining his high school basketball team, but was rejected because of his height. He picked up cross-country running, but he returned to basketball in his senior year, not only making the team, but he was named the school's Athlete of the Year. Continuing his success into post-education, he joined the Simon Fraser University Junior Varsity Basketball team. However, on November 12, 1976, Terry's life would change forever. While driving home, he crashed into the back of a pickup truck and injured his right knee. Choosing to ignore his injury in order to finish up his basketball season, it ended up being an ill-fated decision. By March, the pain had become too much, and after a visit to the hospital, it was revealed that he had cancer in his knee, and he would have to have his right leg amputated. Always the overachiever though, Terry began walking again only 3 weeks after his surgery on his new artificial leg. During his 16 months of chemotherapy, he became inspired by Dick Traum, who had become the first amputee to complete the New York City Marathon. Terry began a 14-month training program where everyone around him believed he was training to complete a marathon, but Terry had other plans. During those 14 months, Terry had watched people suffer and die from the deadly disease he was battling and hatched an ambitious plan. Terry Fox was going to run across Canada to raise money for cancer research, in which he would later call the Marathon of Hope. That's right, he was going to run from Newfoundland here to British Columbia here. If you're like me and not great with geography or math, that's around 8,000 kilometers, or around 5,000 miles in freedom units. Do you know how far that is? Some days I can't even make it to my mailbox and back without getting winded.
Kids my age and younger. And you just can't leave something like that and try and forget it. And I couldn't anyway. I had to try and do something about it.
On October 15, 1979, Terry Fox began putting his plan into place by sending a letter to the Canadian Cancer Society, informing them of his plans. They agreed to support Terry's quest and acquired sponsors. Ford donated a camper van, Imperial Oil contributed the fuel, Adidas provided as many running shoes as he would need, and any other costs of the journey were covered.
This afternoon at 2:45 in St. John's Harbor, Terry Fox dipped his foot into the waters of the Atlantic Ocean.
Joined by his friend Doug Allward, who drove the van next to Terry and cooked his meals, Terry began his journey of 42 kilometers a day. In his first few days, he was met with gale force winds, heavy rain, and a snowstorm, but Terry powered through, and would soon arrive in Nova Scotia where his brother Daryl would join the trek. On June 22nd, Terry arrived in Montreal, which was 1/3 of the mark of his run, and he had collected $200,000 in donations. This is an incredible number for anyone to raise, but for Terry it was a bit of a disappointment, because based on those numbers and where he was at in his run, he would fall short of the $1 million mark he hoped to achieve.
To say that I could do it, but to try and raise as much money as I could for the Canadian Cancer Society.
Q Isidore Sharp, the founder and CEO of Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, who would enter the picture. 2 years prior to the Marathon of Hope, Schrapp had lost his son Christopher to melanoma, and he decided he wanted to get involved. Not only did Schrapp open up his hotels and resorts to accommodate Terry on his journey, but provided food and convinced close to 1,000 corporations to pledge $2 a mile. The hope in Terry's Marathon of Hope was renewed, and it seemed not only possible to reach that $1 million goal, but to surpass it. On the last Saturday in June of that year, Terry entered Ontario to a bit of a surprise. Waiting for him there was a brass band, a police escort, and thousands of residents lining the streets. As summer approached, the heat started to take its toll, and his daily marathons were cut down to 26 miles a day. Still an incredible feat to accomplish in the blistering sun. In Ottawa, he met Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau and performed a ceremonial kickoff at the CFL game. On July 11th, he arrived in Toronto, and the Marathon of Hope had been taken to new heights as everyone across the country began tracking Terry's journey. A crowd of 10,000 people lined the streets of Toronto. He stopped to throw out the first pitch at a Blue Jays game and was even joined by hockey star Daryl Sittler and Bobby Orr, who presented him with a check for $25,000. People from everywhere jumped at the opportunity to run alongside Canada's newest icon, but what they didn't know was that the physical demands of the run were beginning to take their toll on Terry's body. Prosthetic legs at the time weren't designed for running. Shin splints and an inflamed knee, cysts, and dizzy spells had become a daily hurdle for him to overcome. Terry had the weight of an entire nation on his back and put a lot of pressure on himself to keep going. Tendinitis had developed, which he treated with painkillers, and then he refused regular medical checkups because he was worried it would stop him from reaching British Columbia. By late August, Terry was finding himself tired before starting his daily run, and on September 1st in Thunder Bay, Ontario, he was forced to stop briefly after experiencing chest pains and bad coughing fits. A few more miles into that same run, he was forced to visit a local hospital. The next day, Terry Fox held a press conference with a devastating announcement.
I was coughing and choking and had pain in my neck and my chest. And I did 3 more miles and I decided I had to go see a doctor. And it was discovered then that originally I had primary cancer in my knee 3.5 years ago. And that the cancer had spread, and now I've got cancer in my lungs. And we got to go home and try and do some more treatment.
After 143 days, 5,373 kilometers, and $1.7 million raised, the Marathon of Hope came to an abrupt and heartbreaking end. Though there was a silver lining, because a nationwide telethon aired in his honor, which raised $10.5 million, and by April, $23 million was raised. The month following the Marathon of Hope, Terry became the youngest person to be awarded the Order of Canada and received a telegram from Pope John Paul II, praying for his recovery while receiving chemotherapy treatments. Unfortunately, prayers and chemotherapy weren't enough, and on June 19, 1981, at 4:35 a.m., Terry Fox passed away at only 22 years old. The kid from Winnipeg was mourned by the entire country he united over that 1980 summer. It felt as though Canada had lost its son. Today, his legacy is kept alive by the Terry Fox Run, which hosts over 3 million participants in 60 different countries every year, and has raised over $850 million in his name to this date. He's considered one of the greatest Canadians of all time, with monuments built all across the nation, featured on our money, and his story was even told in a 1983 film starring Eric Fryer and Robert Duvall. He is a true hero that will never be forgotten. I wanted to make this video now because the next Terry Fox Run is September 17th. I'll leave a link in the bio to the Terry Fox Foundation if you'd like to make a donation. Unfortunately, almost all of us have been touched by cancer in one way or another. Sorry that this video isn't as funny and upbeat as my usual videos, but it was a story I grew up with and I wanted to share with anyone who didn't know about Terry Fox. I'm sure some would argue that none of my videos are funny, and if that's the case, it's just business as usual. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if you'd like to make a donation, visit terryfox.org or look in this video's description with the direct link. Bye everyone.
But I might not make it. And if I don't make it, the Marathon of Hope better continue.